So with large influx of Warzone guys and gals coming around to Apex, I figured it's time that somebody takes a look at the TTK charts of these guns and figures out what guns are actually worth picking up and what aren't. Now, I'm fully aware that you can't make loadouts like you can in Warzone, but that said, you still definitely want to pay attention to what's being able to be picked up and what's usable, so you don't waste time using the wrong thing and just getting slapped, because, especially in ranked, dude, that's disheartening. So we're going to start with the ARs. So as you look at the assault rifles, we're going to notice one very specific thing here I want to mention is the Havoc rifle, just like the Devotion. This is a pre-spool, or post-spool, I guess you'd call it, lineup. So let's say that you pre-fire a bunch to get the full spool rate. That is the TTK that we're looking at here. Because of the turbocharger influencing that. I wasn't exactly sure how to mention that, but that's what we're going to do for this, is we're just going to use it like it's fully spooled, and you're pre-firing. Even at that point, it's still not worth really using, so there's that. So looking at the TTK chart, we're going to notice is the level 1, 2, 3, and 4 different damages and different shot-to-kill values. I also threw in the level 4 headshot values, because that's going to be the most headshot damage you need to give to get the kill. So taking a look at the flatline, we'll notice that actually it's a pretty good contender in the full auto category. Now, that being said, the Hemlock Burst AR comes in at .653, which is significantly faster felt, I think, than the 301 at .741. Now, there isn't a huge disparity there, right? It's about 100 milliseconds, 90 milliseconds or so. But once you start considering the added time for the 225 health for the level 4 armor, it really starts to add up. For instance, you're going from 8 shots with level 1 to 12 shots to kill with the level 4. And mind you, this gun spits out 3 rounds at a time, so that definitely adds up in your burst delays and things like that. Now, it's important to note as well that the VK47 flatline is also a 7-shot headshot. So there is some interesting little things here and there that you can do, especially if you're a headshot machine. And you'll notice that there are a lot of guns that work well for one level, but not necessarily for the other level. So just gotta keep that in mind. So to move on to the SMGs, I would definitely say that the Prowler is a good option, but the R99 still holds the most value to me, mainly because of the shot forgiveness, because it does shoot out 1080, so 1080 rounds per minute. So it definitely has a little more shot forgiveness than the Volt, which shoots at 720 rounds per minute. So not only that, but it has the fastest TTK in the SMG category. Now, mind you, once you start talking about level 3s, we're sitting at 1 second flat versus the Volt being the next fastest at 1.083. That's not a huge disparity by any means, and it's like a frame or two at absolute most, so it's not a huge deal. But for my money, the R99 is usually what I like using, just because I'm a little more accurate with it, though definitely the Volt is actually statistically more accurate, I believe, as we look at these numbers. But again, headshot values, right? We're sitting at 14 headshots to make the R99 worth it, because the 17 headshot damage, versus the potential for the Volt being significantly faster with 10 headshots and 23 headshot damage. So that is a wild consideration to keep in mind. Now, the alternator is going to show as a kind of weird right now, mainly because of the TTK is going to show as a .9, but you also can keep in mind that there are disruptor rounds in this gun, since it's a carry package gun right now. So with that being the case, what we're really looking at here is something to shred the shields and to follow that up with a different gun, and that really is how that should be used right now, at least. So, I mean, out of all these guns, like I said, I'm picking up the R99 as my primary, given the option. The Volt is a great backup gun to that, and I definitely say that the R99 is a little more usable because of the ammo availability of it. So again, like I mentioned, the Devotion and the LMG category, it takes a long time to spool up, so keep that in mind when using these energy guns like this. But that still being said, yeah, it's a .6 TTK, which is significantly faster than any other basic gun. The Spitfire still has my vote for the best LMG. Yep, you can pick up that Rampage, and it is accurate. The Rampage is an accurate gun, but it has no shot forgiveness because the 300 rounds per minute. And with the Revved Up, or what should be called Ramped Up, but that's a discussion for another day, 390 rounds per minute. So it's only a 90 round per minute game. It only takes off about 0.08-ish for the TTK, so it's not a huge change. So, I mean, the question really is it worth picking up if that's the case? I mean, I'm not necessarily sure it is, to be honest. So, like I said, the Spitfire gets my vote for this. Yeah, it takes a little bit longer to kill than the L-Star at level 2 and level 3. But at level 4, the L-Star and the Spitfire are basically neck and neck. Same with the Rampage that's revved up. And the Devotion is by far the fastest TTK of the LMG category with level 4s at 0.933. But for my money, the Spitfire is just what I'm going to pick up more often than not, because it's just, I can do a little more rounds down range, and I can hit things at distance and use it to poke and not have to worry about it too much. Though the Rampage, once we get comfortable with it, it might be the way to go for the poking aspect of it. Speaking of poking, Marksman rifles have a very specific place in the Apex meta. The 30-30 is definitely an overlooked gun. The triple take, people love it for, I think, very little reason unless you're hitting headshots with it. The G7, in my mind, has absolutely no reason to be picked up other than if there's nothing else around. The 30-30 is going to hit for a whopping 42 body damage, which, yes, is actually more than the G7. So there is that. The TTK coming out of this is 0.779 for level 1, and it's at only 0.1299 for chest TTK for level 4 armor, which of course is red armor. The G7 is basically a quarter second slower, and the triple take is a whopping 2.3 seconds. So the triple take, if you're not hitting headshots, it's absolutely not worth picking up. Yep, it does 69 body damage, but again, the follow-up of that shot just isn't necessarily there, and it slows you way down. So for the Marksman category, the 30-30 repeater is definitely going to be my winning gun. As far as sniper rifles go, actually this is one that I find super interesting in that there's a few different ways you can go with this depending on how your personality is. So if you're somebody who hits a lot of headshots, obviously the Sentinel is the way to go, and the Kraber, if you can find one, dude, it's lights out. But the DMR Longbow actually has my vote, if I'm honest. Yeah, the charge rifle can put down a lot of damage, but that being said, the Longbow DMR has this ability to follow up, for me, that just works really well with headshots. So the headshot damage is going to be 129, versus the Sentinel with it is not charged up at 140. So yes, it does 11 less damage, but that's still putting somebody down that has white armor in basically one shot. And if you follow up the headshot, boom, that's another major 129 damage. That doesn't matter what they're wearing, they're down. And it has a little more shot forgiveness because of the rate of fire than the Sentinel. But obviously the Sentinel is going to fly super flat, and if you have the Sentinel charged up, the 175 headshot damage is going to put a lot of people down immediately. The only thing I should mention about the charge rifle as well is that the TTK is heavily dependent on your accuracy, obviously. So when you consider that the body damage is 90, the headshot damage is 116, and the extremity damage actually is the same as the body damage of the charge rifle. It's got a little more forgiveness in that way, so just keep that in mind. Now, if I'm honest, what actually started me on this whole spreadsheet thing was shotguns. I was talking to Dipsy, a viewer that's a common viewer all the time here. I'm sure you've seen some live streams with him as well. We were talking about shotguns, and I had the thought of, well, the EVA 8 is great. It's a great shotgun. But I always used the Mastiff because it was a phenomenal gun in the care package back in the good old days, right? And as we look at it, the Mastiff still does have a faster TTK at 0.909, but the 0.952 is definitely a little more forgiving, especially when you consider the automatic nature of the EVA 8. Now, it is worth noting that the Mozambique is also an automatic shotgun. People, for some reason, don't believe it is, but it definitely is, so just kind of keep that in mind. Now, I also should mention that all of these guns do have the option to increase the fire rate with bolts, right? The shotgun bolts and things like that. So you can increase this TTK with the shotgun bolts, and that's not factored into my numbers because this is what you're going to pick up off the ground. And the statistics are just too crazy right now for me to look at for those bolts. But we'll definitely look at that at a later date and dive a little bit deeper into the attachments if you guys are interested in that. But like I was saying, so the TTK, once you start looking up at the level 4 stuff, the EVA 8 actually kind of walks away with it if we look at it, to be honest. So let's be honest, between the TTK, the EVA 8, as well as the way that it stacks rounds with the 8-shaped, choke, there's no reason to not use the EVA 8 over anything else. I mean, it's more forgiving, faster TTK, and it just works better. So EVA 8 it is. If you're somebody that plays arenas, you know that the P2020 is usually a gun you're going to have in your hand. Unfortunately, the TTK on that gun is just absolutely abysmal, and it kind of should be being a handgun and like the weakest one in the game. So the handgun is doing 1.714 TTK with a 13 shots to kill at level 1 armor. Now, if we need to push this out to level 4 armor, we're looking at 19 shots to kill, which is just insane. That's 2.5 seconds that you need to actually focus fire on somebody to get them downed. Now the RE45 is it's a decent option at 0.923 or 13 shots to kill level 1, or 1.38 at level 4 with 19 shots to kill, which is the same with the P2020, just obviously it spits them out a heck of a lot faster, almost double the fire rate basically, 780 versus 420 rounds per second. We'll try to keep that in mind. Now obviously the Wingman is a gun that it's either extremely weak or extremely good. It's a 1.154 TTK, or 3 headshots with a level 4 armor. So not only is that less of a TTK than the chest shots with level 1, but also is less shots per kill than level 1 vest, level 1 armor, shield, whatever you want to call it. So the headshots with the Wingman absolutely are critical to getting the quick kills with that gun. And if you can do that, dude, it's a cheap backup for arenas that you absolutely should use or have on the back end. Doesn't cost that much, and it's really worth grabbing. But guys, that is kind of my Apex guide for guns. If you guys are interested in more statistical kind of knowledge about Apex, give this video a like, give me a subscribe. Have a good one, guys. I'll see you around.